The screaming had lasted for 3 hours and 47 minutes. Maya Vance knew because she'd been counting, the way she counted everything when her anxiety spiked: breaths, heartbeats, the number of times the flight attendants walked past without making eye contact with the man in seat 2A. The infant's cries tore through the first-class cabin like an air raid siren, relentless and primal. Every passenger within earshot had long ago abandoned any pretense of sleep or work, their faces masks of exhaustion and barely suppressed irritation. But none complained. Not one person dared press the call button or ask to be moved. If you enjoyed Maya and Silas's story, don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling romance tales where love is forged in the most dangerous circumstances. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss when ordinary people collide with extraordinary danger and find themselves transformed by love, loyalty, and the fierce bonds of chosen family. What did you think of Maya's journey from captive to queen of the Vain dynasty? Drop a comment below and let me know your favorite moment. Was it the airplane confrontation, the panic room siege, or that final choice when she shredded her freedom for love? Subscribe now, and I'll see you in the next story where passion meets peril and hearts are one in the shadows. Not when they saw who was holding the child. Silas Vain sat with the rigid posture of a man who controlled empires with a signature and ended lives with a nod. The charcoal suit that usually made him look like death personified now seemed to trap him, the immaculate fabric creasing around shoulders that had gone tense hours ago. His eyes, those infamous pale gray eyes that the tabloids called Arctic Death, held something Maya had never seen in the grainy courtroom photos that occasionally made the news. Desperation. Raw, unfiltered desperation. The baby in his arms was tiny, perhaps 3 months old, with a shock of dark hair and a face red from sustained crying. Her daughter. The whispers had started the moment they boarded. His daughter. The one whose mother vanished. The heir to the Vain syndicate, screaming like the world was ending. And maybe for her it was. Sir. One of the bodyguards. Maya counted 3 scattered throughout first class, leaned in with the careful movements of someone approaching a wounded predator. We could request an emergency landing. Find a doctor. No. Silas's voice was cold precision wrapped in silk menace. We land on schedule. But the baby, Lyra, Maya had heard him murmur once, didn't care about schedules. She didn't care that her father's criminal network stretched across 4 continents. That prosecutors had spent decades trying to touch him. That entire rival organizations had been dismantled on his orders. The infant only knew distress, discomfort, and the absence of something she couldn't name but desperately needed. Silas had tried everything Maya could see. She'd watched from 3 rows back as he awkwardly offered bottles that the baby rejected with surprising strength. Pacifiers that were spat out. Rocking motions that looked foreign in arms more accustomed to violence than tenderness. The nanny he'd mentioned earlier was waiting at their destination, but that was still 2 hours away. 2 hours that this baby might not have. 5 rows behind Silas. Maya felt her professional instincts override her survival ones. She'd spent 8 years working with children in crisis. Foster care, emergency removals, trauma cases that would haunt her forever. She knew that sound. Not just hunger or a dirty diaper. That was the cry of a baby in genuine distress, the kind that preceded failure to thrive, dehydration, or worse. Her hands gripped the armrests until her knuckles went white. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to stay invisible, stay safe. Men like Silas Vain didn't appreciate interference. The news was full of people who'd crossed him and simply disappeared. But the baby was suffering. Maya had spent her entire career protecting children when no one else would. She'd walked into meth houses, domestic violence situations, and confrontations with parents who saw her as the enemy. She'd learned to swallow fear and do what needed to be done. This shouldn't be any different. Except it is, a voice in her head whispered. This is Silas Vain. This is suicide. The crying escalated, taking on a desperate, breathless quality that made Maya's chest tighten. She'd heard that progression before. The baby was exhausting herself, and when infants got to this state they sometimes just stopped. Gave up. Maya unbuckled her seatbelt before she could think better of it. "Miss." A flight attendant materialized beside her, voice tight with stress. "Is there something?" "I'm a social worker. Specialized in infant care and trauma." Maya stood, her voice steadier than she felt. "That baby needs help." The attendant's expression flickered between relief and doubt. "The passenger has been very clear about not wanting interference. His security team." "Then his security team can stop me." Maya was already moving down the aisle, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. "But that baby is in distress and I know how to help." Each step felt like walking toward the edge of a cliff. She could feel eyes on her. Other passengers, the bodyguards, the flight crew. Everyone watching the woman stupid enough to approach the untouchable Silas Vain. Then she was there, standing beside his seat, and the full force of his attention snapped to her like a physical blow. Up close, Silas Vain was even more terrifying than the rumors suggested. He radiated danger the way other men radiated cologne. His face could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and brutal beauty, with a jaw that looked designed to make threats. The tattoos that crept up from his collar and wound down his hands told stories of violence and power. And those eyes, pale and cold as a winter sky, could strip away lies and leave nothing but raw truth. For a moment Maya forgot how to breathe. "A social worker," he repeated, his voice low and rough like gravel dipped in honey. A slight Eastern European accent threaded through the words. "Come to inform me I'm an unfit father?" "I came to help your daughter," Maya heard herself say, though her voice sounded far away. "That's not a hungry cry. That's distress. I've tried everything." Frustration cracked through his controlled exterior, and Maya saw one of the bodyguards tense. "She won't eat, won't sleep, won't." "Hey, Maya extended her arms before her brain could catch up to her body, every instinct screaming that this was insane. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. Silas stared at her with an intensity that should have turned her to ash. His jaw worked, the muscles in his neck standing out in sharp relief. For a second, Maya thought he might have her thrown off the plane mid-flight. Then Lyra let out another soul-destroying scream, and something in the unbreakable Silas Vain fractured. "You have 60 seconds to prove you're not wasting my time," he said, the words emerging like a death sentence. "Or we're going to have a very different conversation." Maya reached for the baby and Lyra came into her arms with surprising ease. The moment the infant made contact with her chest, Maya felt it. The rapid heartbeat, the overheated skin, the tension in the tiny body. "She's overstimulated," Maya said softly, already shifting Lyra into a specific hold she'd learned years ago. "Everything is too much. The lights, the noise, the cabin pressure. Her nervous system is in overload." She turned the baby inward against her chest, creating a small, dark space with her body. One hand supported Lyra's head, the other pressed firmly against her back. Then Maya began a specific rhythm, gentle pressure, release, while humming a low monotone sound that cut through the ambient noise. "What are you?" Silas started. "Skin-to-skin contact and deep pressure therapy," Maya murmured, not breaking her rhythm. "It simulates the womb. Regulates her nervous system. I need you to trust me for 3 minutes." "Trust?" She just asked Silas Vain to trust her. The silence that followed was deafening. Maya could feel his stare boring into her, could sense the bodyguards shifting closer. Every second felt like an eternity. Then, impossibly, Lyra's cries began to quiet. The shrill screams softened to whimpers, then to hiccuping breaths. Her tiny fists, which had been flailing, slowly uncurled against Maya's shirt. The entire first-class cabin went still. Maya kept the rhythm going, kept humming, kept creating that safe, small world for the exhausted infant. She'd done this 100 times before with babies in crisis. But never while standing in an airplane aisle. Never while a crime lord watched her with eyes that promised either salvation or destruction. 2 minutes passed. Then 3. Lyra's breathing evened out. Her small body relaxed, melting into Maya's hold with a trust that made something crack open in Maya's chest. And then miraculously the baby's eyes drifted closed. Silence. Pure absolute silence. Maya finally looked up at Silas and found him staring at his daughter with an expression she couldn't name. Wonder maybe. Or fear. His hand had moved unconsciously toward Lyra, hovering just inches away as if afraid to break whatever spell had been cast. How did you? His voice was rough, unsteady. Vulnerable in a way that made him seem almost human. I've worked with hundreds of babies in crisis, Maya said quietly, still maintaining the hold. The technique is called containment. She needed to feel safe and regulated. She's asleep now. She'll probably stay that way for a few hours. She moved to transfer Lyra back, but Silas's hand shot out and caught her wrist with surprising gentleness. His fingers were warm, his touch more careful than she'd expected from a man rumored to break bones without hesitation. Your name, he said. Not a question. A command. Maya. Maya Vance. Silas Vain. He released her wrist but his eyes never left hers. You've just done what nannies, nurses and doctors couldn't do in 3 months. I'm glad I could help. Maya carefully transferred the sleeping baby back to his arms. Lyra barely stirred, too exhausted to wake. Keep her in that position. The pressure helps. And dim the lights around her when possible. She turned to leave, desperate to escape before the adrenaline wore off and her legs gave out. Miss Vance. Maya stopped, her heart lurching. When she looked back, Silas Vain was standing, his daughter cradled against his chest with newfound confidence. The dangerous man who'd terrified an entire plane now looked at Maya with an intensity that was somehow more frightening than his earlier fury. In my world, he said softly, each word deliberate, there are no random acts of kindness. Everything has a cost. And what you just did, claiming my daughter's peace when no one else could, that's not something I can walk away from. Something in his tone made Maya's survival instincts flare to life. Sounded less like gratitude and more like a vow. I should get back to my seat, she managed. Yes, Silas agreed, but his pale eyes promised this wasn't over. You should. As Maya returned to her seat on shaking legs, she didn't know that her life had just irrevocably changed. That by soothing the vain air, she'd triggered an ancient blood oath tradition. That she'd just become the most valuable and vulnerable person in Silas Vain's dark world. All she knew was that when the plane landed in 2 hours, nothing would ever be the same again. Maya had barely settled back into her seat when the flight attendant appeared beside her, face pale and apologetic. Miss Vance? Mr. Vain has requested you join him for landing. Requested. The word was carefully chosen, but Maya heard the truth underneath. This wasn't a request. She found Silas in the same seat, Lyra still sleeping against his chest. But his attention was fixed entirely on Maya as she approached, those pale eyes tracking her movements with predatory focus. One of the bodyguards materialized a seat beside him, gesturing for her to sit. The baby's calm now, Maya said, remaining standing. You don't need me anymore. Sit down, Miss Vance. Silas's voice was silk over steel. We're about to land. Maya sat hyper-aware of how close he was, how the space seemed to shrink around his presence. Lyra shifted slightly against him, and his hand immediately moved to support her head, the gesture surprisingly tender for a man who supposedly ordered executions over breakfast. Tell me about this technique, he said, not looking at her. His focus was on his daughter, but Maya knew he was listening to every word, cataloging every detail. It's called containment therapy. Deep pressure input combined with reduced sensory stimulation. I use it with babies who've experienced trauma or separation. Separation. The word came out flat. Her mother disappeared 3 months ago. Maya's chest tightened. The rumors were true then. Babies remember. Even newborns. They know when something fundamental changes in their world. Silas's jaw worked, the muscle jumping beneath his skin. The doctor said she was healthy. That there was nothing physically wrong with her. There probably isn't. But healthy doesn't mean unaffected. Maya watched Lyra's peaceful face, the way her tiny fingers curled into Silas's shirt. She's grieving. Babies grieve differently than adults, but they absolutely grieve. The plane began its descent, the cabin pressure shifting. Lyra stirred, her face scrunching, and Maya saw panic flash across Silas's features. There and gone in a heartbeat, but real. "Hey, Maya extended her hands, and after a moment's hesitation, Silas transferred his daughter to her. Maya immediately recreated the hold, pressing Lyra against her chest, resuming the rhythmic pressure. The baby settled instantly, recognizing the pattern even in sleep. Maya began humming again, that low monotone that cut through the engine noise and the pressure changes. He felt Silas watching her. Not just watching. Studying, analyzing, trying to understand something that didn't fit into his world of transactions and threats. "You're not afraid of me," he said finally. Not a question. An observation that clearly bothered him. "I'm terrified of you," Maya corrected, not looking up from Lyra. "I'm just more afraid of what happens to babies when no one helps them." Something shifted in the air between them. When Maya glanced up, she found Silas staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. Equal parts fascination and fury, like she'd somehow insulted and intrigued him simultaneously. "Everyone who meets me wants something," he said, his accent thickening slightly. "Money, protection, favors, mercy. What do you want, Maya Vance?" "I want your daughter to be okay." The honesty surprised even her. "That's all. No one is that selfless." "I'm not selfless. I'm a social worker. This is what I do." Maya adjusted Lyra as the landing gear deployed with a thunk. "Tomorrow I'll go back to my cases and you'll go back to your life. We'll never see each other again." Silas leaned closer, close enough that Maya could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes, could smell expensive cologne mixed with something darker. Gunpowder maybe, or just danger made manifest. "No," he said softly, and the word was a promise and a threat rolled into one. "We won't." The plane touched down with a gentle bump. Lyra slept through it, safe in Maya's arms. But Maya felt the ground shift beneath her anyway, felt the future she'd planned crumbling like sand. When the seatbelt sign dinged off, 2 bodyguards appeared at the end of their row. Silas stood, smoothing his suit with one hand. "You'll come with us," he said, taking Lyra from Maya with practiced ease now. "To ensure the transition. Make certain she stays settled. I have a connecting flight that you'll miss." Silas's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. "Consider it a professional consultation. I'll compensate you for your time." Maya's stomach dropped. This wasn't gratitude. This was something else entirely, something that made every instinct scream to run while she still could. But Lyra was sleeping peacefully against her father's chest, and Maya knew if she left now, the baby would spiral again. Hours of crying. Days maybe. The kind of distress that left permanent scars. "Just until she's settled," Maya heard herself say. "Then I'm gone." Silas's eyes gleamed with something that might have been triumph. "Of course, Miss Vance," he agreed. "Just until she's settled." They both knew he was lying. The black SUV was waiting on the tarmac, engine running, windows tinted dark enough to be illegal. Maya had never deplaned directly onto the runway before, had never bypassed customs and security with nothing more than a nod from men in expensive suits who looked like they ate bullets for breakfast. "This isn't right," Maya said as one of the bodyguards opened the door. "I need to go through." "Already handled." Silas appeared beside her, Lyra still cradled in one arm while his free hand settled on Maya's lower back. Not pushing, just guiding, the touch somehow more threatening than force would have been. "You're traveling under my protection now." Diplomatic immunity has its advantages. Maya's blood went cold. I'm not traveling anywhere. I'm going home. You will. Eventually. Silas's smile didn't reach his eyes as he gestured to the vehicle. After you, Miss Vance. The drive through the city was silent except for Lyra's occasional sleepy sounds. Maya sat rigid in the leather seat, watching unfamiliar streets blur past while two bodyguards occupied the row behind them and another drove. Silas sat beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him, his attention split between his phone and his daughter. They'd been driving for 30 minutes when Lyra began to fuss, her small face scrunching with the warning signs of an impending meltdown. Silas immediately shifted, trying to recreate the hold Maya had shown him, but his movements were too uncertain, his large hands clumsy with anxiety. Lyra's whimpers escalated to cries. Here. Maya reached over without thinking, adjusting his arm position, showing him the pressure points. Support her head like this and keep the rhythm steady. She needs to feel the pattern. Their hands touched as she guided him, and Maya felt him go still. When she glanced up, those pale eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made her mouth go dry. Show me again, he said quietly. Maya demonstrated, taking Lyra for a moment to reset the baby's nervous system, then carefully transferring her back. This time Silas got it right and Lyra settled with a shuddering sigh. You're a fast learner, Maya said, pulling back to her side of the seat. I have to be. Something dark flickered across his features. In my world, you don't get second chances to figure things out. The estate appeared like something from a crime thriller. All iron gates and security cameras, guards at every checkpoint, and a mansion that looked more like a fortress. Maya's anxiety ratcheted up with each layer of security they passed. Mr. Vain, she tried again as they pulled up to the entrance. I really need to get home. I have work tomorrow, people depending on me. They'll be informed you're taking emergency leave. Silas stepped out of the vehicle, then turned back to offer her his hand. Your supervisor has already been contacted. Generous compensation for your time has been arranged. Maya ignored his hand and climbed out on her own. You can't just rearrange my life. I can, and I have. He started toward the entrance, then paused when he realized she wasn't following. Don't make this difficult, Miss Vance. You wanted to help my daughter. Now you will. That's not help. That's kidnapping. The word hung in the air between them, sharp and dangerous. The bodyguards tensed. Somewhere in the distance, Maya heard the electronic whir of a camera turning to focus on them. Silas walked back to her, close enough that she had to tilt her head to maintain eye contact. If I wanted to kidnap you, Maya, you'd already be in a very different location having a very different conversation. This is an invitation. Forced by threat and manipulation. Forced by necessity. He shifted Lyra slightly and the baby immediately began to fuss at the change. Watch. He walked 10 feet away. Lyra's fussing became crying. 20 feet. The crying became screaming. Silas turned back, his expression grim as he returned to where Maya stood. The moment he was within 5 feet of her, Lyra's cries began to quiet, the baby's small body straining toward Maya even from her father's arms. She knows you now, Silas said, and there was something almost like desperation beneath the control. Your voice, your scent, your presence. You've become her safe person and I don't know how to undo that. He paused. I don't know if I want to. Maya looked at the baby, at those tiny seeking hands, and felt her resolve crumble. How long? A week. Maybe 2. Until I can find a qualified nanny who can replicate your techniques. Until Lyra feels secure enough to transfer that attachment. His eyes met hers. Until I can keep my daughter alive without you. The raw honesty in those last words undid her. Maya had spent her career being the bridge between broken situations and stability. It's what she did. It's who she was. Even when the situation included a crime lord and a fortress masquerading as a home. 2 weeks, she said finally. And then I walk away. No matter what. Silas's smile was slight, knowing. 2 weeks, Miss Vance. You have my word. They both knew his word meant nothing. But Maya followed him inside anyway, into the marble-floored fortress that gleamed with wealth and hummed with danger, and felt the last piece of her normal life slip away like smoke. Behind them, the iron gates closed with a final, definitive clang. The nursery was on the 3rd floor, facing east to catch the morning light. It was beautiful in the way that unlimited money could make anything beautiful. Hand-painted murals of forests and stars. A crib that probably cost more than Maya's car. Toys that looked like they belonged in a museum. But the windows were bulletproof. The door reinforced steel disguised as mahogany, and cameras watched from every corner. A prison decorated as a paradise. Maya had just finished settling Lyra into the crib, the baby finally sleeping after the chaos of the day, when Silas appeared in the doorway. He'd removed his jacket, rolled his sleeves to reveal more of the intricate tattoos that wound up his forearms. Symbols and scripts Maya didn't recognize, but that probably meant violence in half a dozen languages. "We need to talk," he said, voice low to avoid waking his daughter. "I'm tired. Can it wait until morning?" "No." He gestured toward the sitting room adjacent to the nursery. "Now." Maya followed him into a space that was all leather and dark wood, with monitors showing various camera feeds from around the estate. Silas poured himself 2 fingers of something amber from a crystal decanter but didn't offer her any. Instead, he stood by the window staring out at grounds lit by security lights. "Do you know what you did on that plane?" he asked finally. "I helped a baby in distress. You claimed her." He turned to face Maya, and his expression was unreadable. "In my world there are traditions older than law. One of them is this. Anyone who saves the life or sanity of the Vain heir becomes blood-bound to the family. Protection in exchange for loyalty. A debt that can never be fully repaid." Maya's stomach dropped. "That's insane. I don't believe in your traditions." "Belief is irrelevant." Silas took a slow sip of his drink. "My enemies believe. The 5 families believe. The Ironwork Cartel, the Volkov Bratva, the Sinaloa connections, they all believe. And the moment word spreads that someone calmed the untamable Vain heir, they'll come for you. Why would they care about me? Because you're leverage." He set down his glass with deliberate care. "Lyra has been screaming since her mother vanished. Every rival organization has been watching, waiting to see if the great Silas Vain could even keep his own daughter alive. They've been circling, waiting for weakness. And then you appeared." Maya's mouth went dry. "I'm nobody. A social worker from. You're the woman who holds my daughter's peace in her hands." Silas moved closer, and Maya forced herself not to retreat. "Which makes you either my greatest asset or my most dangerous vulnerability. Probably both. So what? You're going to lock me in this fortress forever. I'm going to protect you. There's a difference." "Is there?" Maya gestured around them. "Cameras everywhere. Guards at every door. I can't leave, can't call anyone without your permission. How is this different from captivity?" Something flickered in Silas's eyes. Acknowledgement, maybe, or regret. "Because captivity implies I want you here against your will. Protection implies I'm keeping you alive despite your own ignorance about the danger you're in. Danger you created by bringing me here. Danger you created the moment you touched my daughter." His voice hardened. "You think you can just walk back into your normal life? Within 48 hours, there would be a surveillance team outside your apartment. Within a week, someone would try to grab you off the street. Within 2 weeks, you'd be in a basement somewhere while they sent me pieces of you until I gave them what they wanted." The casual brutality of his words hit Maya like ice water. "You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to save your life." Silas pulled out his phone, swiped through something, then held it up. The screen showed a photograph of Maya getting coffee that morning, before the flight, before any of this. "This was taken by a Volkov asset. They knew you existed before you knew I did. They've been tracking everyone who interacts with Lyra since her birth. Maya's legs felt weak. She sat down before they could give out. How is that possible? Because in my world, information is currency and everyone is watching everyone else. The moment you walked down that aisle, you became part of a game you didn't know you were playing. He pocketed his phone. But I can keep you safe. That's what the blood debt means. You're under Vain protection now. No one touches you. No one even looks at you without my permission. And what do you get out of this arrangement? Maya's voice came out sharper than intended. A captive caretaker for your daughter? Unpaid labor wrapped in pretty words about tradition. Silas's expression went cold. I get my daughter alive and healthy. I get the one person who seems capable of giving her what I can't. And yes, I get the satisfaction of honoring a tradition that's kept my family in power for 4 generations. He paused. What you get is your life. I think that's a fair trade. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to call him a monster and demand her freedom. But she'd seen enough in her career to know what men like him were capable of. And beneath the anger and fear, a small voice reminded her that Lyra was sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. 2 weeks, she said finally. That was our deal. 2 weeks to prove to you that leaving is suicide. Silas moved toward the door, then stopped. Your room is across the hall. Ensuite bathroom, anything you need will be provided. Don't try to leave the 3rd floor without an escort. For your own safety. Safety or imprisonment? He looked back at her, and for just a moment she saw something almost human in those cold eyes. In my world, Miss Vance, they're the same thing. Then he was gone, leaving Maya alone in the beautiful prison with her new reality settling around her like chains made of silk and steel. The first night Maya didn't sleep. She lay in the obscenely comfortable bed in her assigned room, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sounds of the estate. Distant footsteps, the hum of security systems, the occasional crackle of radio communication between guards. Every time she started to drift off, reality would slam back. She was trapped in a crime lord's fortress, bound by a tradition she didn't believe in, responsible for an infant who wasn't hers. At 2 a.m, Lyra's cries echoed through the baby monitor beside her bed. Maya was moving before she fully woke, crossing the hall in the oversized t-shirt someone had left for her. She expected to find Lyra alone, but Silas was already there, lifting his daughter from the crib with the careful movements of someone handling a live grenade. He looked different in the low light of the nursery. The tailored armor was gone. He wore dark sleep pants and a fitted black t-shirt that revealed the full scope of the tattoos covering his arms and creeping up his neck. His hair was disheveled, his feet bare. Almost human. Almost. I've got her, Maya said quietly, reaching for the baby. Silas hesitated, then handed Lyra over. She needs to be changed. I was about to. I'll handle it. Maya carried Lyra to the changing table, going through the familiar motions while Silas watched from beside the crib. You should go back to sleep. I don't sleep much. He moved closer, observing as Maya cleaned and changed his daughter with efficient gentleness. Show me. I need to learn this. So Maya showed him the proper way to wipe, how to position the diaper, the trick of distracting a fussy baby with soft sounds. Silas's hands were surprisingly deft despite their size, his attention absolute. He learned like someone whose life depended on getting it right. Maybe it did. You're good at this, Maya said as Lyra settled back in her father's arms, ready for her bottle. I'm good at learning what I need to survive. Silas sat in the rocking chair by the window, and Maya found herself sitting in the chair opposite, watching him feed his daughter. I wasn't supposed to be a father. Isabella and it was complicated. And then she was gone, and there was this tiny person who needed me to be something I'd never been. It was the most personal thing he'd said to her, and Maya found herself responding before she could think better of it. No parent knows what they're doing at first. You just learn as you go. And when your mistakes could get your child killed? His eyes met hers over Lyra's head. When there are a dozen organizations waiting for you to fail so they can take everything? Then you ask for help. Like you're doing now. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise maybe, that she'd framed his coercion as asking for help. Is that what you think I'm doing? I think you're terrified. The words came out before Maya could stop them. I think you love your daughter more than you're comfortable with, and you'd do anything to keep her safe. Even things that make you a monster. Silas went still, the bottle frozen halfway to Lyra's mouth. For a moment, Maya thought she'd gone too far, that she'd see the predator everyone warned her about. Instead he laughed, a short, rough sound that held no humor. You're either very brave or very stupid, Maya Vance. Probably both. She watched Lyra's eyes start to drift closed, content and full. I've been told it's my worst quality. Or your best. Silas adjusted his hold as Lyra's sucking slowed, her small body going slack with sleep. He looked down at his daughter with an expression Maya couldn't name, fierce and gentle and utterly vulnerable. She looks like her mother. Same nose, same mouth. Every time I look at her, I see what I lost. And what you gained. Maya stood, moving to take the empty bottle. She's beautiful, Silas. And she's lucky to have you. Lucky. He said the word like it tasted bitter. Her mother is dead or disappeared. Her father is a criminal. She lives in a fortress and will never have a normal life. That's not luck. She has a father who gets up at 2 in the morning to learn how to change a diaper. Who holds her like she's made of glass. Who brought a stranger into his home because that stranger could give his daughter peace. Maya met his eyes. That's not nothing. The silence that followed was different from the tense standoffs of their earlier conversations. Softer. More honest. I killed a man once for threatening my sister, Silas said quietly, still rocking his sleeping daughter. I was 17. It was the first time but not the last. I've done things that would make you run screaming from this house. I am exactly the monster you think I am. And right now, in this moment, you're just a father taking care of his baby. Maya moved toward the door. People are complicated. Even monsters. She was almost out of the room when his voice stopped her. Maya. She turned back. Silas was still sitting in the rocking chair, Lyra peaceful against his chest, and his expression held something that might have been gratitude. Thank you. For staying. For not looking at her like she's tainted by what I am. She's not responsible for your sins, Maya said softly. Neither am I. No. Silas's eyes held hers. But you're caught in them anyway. Maya returned to her room but found herself listening at the door, hearing the quiet sounds of Silas moving around the nursery, humming something low and toneless to keep his daughter asleep. And despite everything, the danger, the coercion, the blood debt she didn't ask for, Maya felt something shift inside her. The monster was still a monster. But he was also a father who loved his daughter enough to show weakness to a stranger. And that made him the most dangerous thing of all. Chapter 5, The Glass Walls. Maya waited 3 days before making her move. 3 days of shared midnight feedings and careful observations. 3 days of learning the guards' rotation patterns, noting which cameras had blind spots, memorizing the layout of the 3rd floor and the stairs beyond. 3 days of telling herself that the moments of connection with Silas meant nothing. She chose 4 in the morning, that dead hour when even trained security got drowsy. Lyra was sleeping soundly, having accepted a full feeding at midnight. Maya had at least 2 hours before the baby would wake. Maybe 3 if she was lucky. She dressed in the clothes that had been provided, dark jeans, a simple sweater, and slipped her phone from the drawer where she'd hidden it. Dead battery, but that could be fixed once she got somewhere safe. She eased open her door, listening for movement in the hallway. Nothing. The corridor was empty, lit only by soft security lighting. Maya moved toward the service stairs she'd noticed the housekeeping staff using, her heart hammering against her ribs. She was a social worker, not a spy. Every step felt too loud, too obvious. The stairs were unlocked. That should have been her first warning. She made it down 2 flights before a voice stopped her cold. Going somewhere, Miss Vance? The guard who stepped out of the shadows was the one they called Victor. Tall, broad, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. He didn't draw a weapon, didn't move to grab her. Just stood there, blocking the exit with his considerable bulk. I need some air, Maya tried. The 3rd floor feels claustrophobic. Mr. Vain anticipated you might feel that way. Victor pulled out his phone, pressed a single button. He's been notified of your location. Maya's stomach sank. You've been watching me. We watch everything. His expression was neutral, not unkind. For your protection. Silas appeared within minutes, still dressed for bed but somehow no less dangerous for it. His eyes swept over Maya, assessing, cataloging, already knowing exactly what she'd been attempting. Victor, give us the room, he said quietly. The guard disappeared up the stairs without a word, leaving them alone in the concrete stairwell. Silas moved closer and Maya backed against the wall reflexively. Where were you planning to go? His voice was soft, conversational. The tone made it worse somehow. Home. To my apartment, my job, my life. Your apartment is being watched by no fewer than 3 hostile surveillance teams. Your job has been informed you're on extended personal leave due to a family emergency. Your life as it was no longer exists. He pulled out his own phone, swiped through screens, then held it out to her. Look. The screen showed her apartment building, or where her apartment building should have been. The entire 3rd floor, her floor, was gutted by fire. Yellow caution tape stretched across the entrance. What did you do? Maya's voice came out as a whisper. I saved your life. Silas pocketed the phone. That fire started 12 hours after we landed. Accelerant-based, professionally done. The official report will call it a gas leak, but we both know better. The ironwork cartel doesn't leave loose ends. Maya felt the floor tilt beneath her. Pie things were removed before the fire. Everything you own is currently in storage under a false name. Your mail is being forwarded to a secure P.O. box. Your bank accounts have been frozen and transferred to protected holdings. His eyes held hers. I told you, Maya. You're under Vain protection now. That means I control every aspect of your existence that could be used against you. That's not protection, that's erasure. Her voice cracked. You've made me disappear. I've kept you alive. Silas stepped closer, close enough that she could see the genuine frustration in his expression. Do you think this is what I wanted? To have to monitor your every move, to scrub your identity, to turn you into a ghost? You became a liability the moment you touched my daughter. I'm simply managing that liability the only way I know how. By making me a prisoner. By making you invisible to people who would torture you for information about Lyra's vulnerabilities. About our security protocols. About me. His jaw tightened. They burned down your home, Maya. With you supposedly inside. As far as the outside world is concerned, you died in that fire. And that's the only reason you're still breathing. The words hit like physical blows. Dead. He'd made her legally dead. My friends, my co-workers, they think I'm gone? They think you're dead or missing. The investigation is ongoing. There will be a memorial service next week. Something flickered in his eyes. I'm sorry, but this was the only way to take you off the board completely. To make you worthless as a target. Maya slid down the wall, her legs finally giving out. Everything she'd built, everyone she'd known, the quiet life she'd carefully constructed, gone. Erased by a man who claimed he was saving her. Silas crouched in front of her, his expression unreadable. I know you hate me right now. That's fine. Hate me. But stay alive while you do it. And Lyra? Maya looked up at him through tears she refused to let fall. What happens to her in this world you've built? This fortress where everyone is watched and controlled. She stays safe. His voice was steel. That's all that matters. No. Maya forced herself to stand, forced herself to meet his eyes. She needs more than safe. She needs to be able to trust people, to form connections, to know that the world isn't just an endless series of threats. Then teach her. Silas stood as well, and something in his posture shifted. You wanted to help her. Help her grow up strong enough to survive what she was born into. Show her there's more to existence than fear and control. From inside a prison? From inside the only place in the world where she's truly protected. He gestured back up the stairs. Come. Lyra will be waking soon. She'll want you. Maya wanted to refuse, wanted to scream at him, wanted to do anything but follow him back to the beautiful cage he'd built. But her apartment was ashes. Her identity was smoke. And somewhere above them, a baby was sleeping who knew Maya's heartbeat like a lullaby. She climbed the stairs behind him, each step feeling like acceptance of a fate she never chose. The glass walls were invisible until you walked into them. And by then escape was just another word for suicide. Maya noticed the shift in the estate's atmosphere before anyone told her what was wrong. The guards moved differently, spoke in tighter clusters, their hands never far from concealed weapons. Silas disappeared for hours into rooms Maya wasn't allowed to enter, emerging with his jaw set and murder in his eyes. On the 5th day she found out why. She was in the nursery with Lyra, singing softly while changing the baby's clothes, when Silas entered with Victor close behind. One look at his face told her something had gone catastrophically wrong. We need to move you, he said without preamble. Different room. Different floor. Why? What happened? Silas exchanged a glance with Victor, some silent communication passing between them. There's been a breach. Information leaked. Someone inside is feeding intelligence to the Ironwork cartel. Maya's blood went cold. What kind of information? Your schedule. What rooms you occupy. When you're alone with Lyra. His voice was carefully controlled, but she could see the rage simmering beneath. They know too much. Which means someone in this house is betraying us. Us, Maya repeated. I'm not part of your world, Silas. I'm just. You're bloodbound to my daughter. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the soft nursery light. That makes you part of this whether you accept it or not. And it makes you a target worth dying for in their eyes. Victor cleared his throat. Sir, the sweep team is ready. Good. Check every room on the 3rd floor. Every device, every connection, every goddamn light bulb. Silas turned back to Maya. Pack what you need for Lyra. You're moving to the East Wing. My personal quarters. Maya's heart stuttered. Your quarters? Absolutely not. It's not a request. His eyes were chips of ice. The East Wing has secondary security protocols. Biometric access only. No staff enters without my explicit clearance. It's the most secure location in the entire estate. It's also your bedroom. My suite has 4 rooms. You'll have your own space. He gestured impatiently. But I need you where I can reach you in seconds, not minutes. Where there's no possibility of someone accessing you without going through me first. This is insane. You're overreacting. Silas moved so fast Maya didn't have time to flinch. He pulled out his phone, thrust it in her face. The screen showed a photograph, grainy, taken with a telephoto lens through the nursery window. Maya holding Lyra, both of them clear and identifiable. This was taken yesterday from a building 3 blocks away, Silas said, his voice dangerously soft. A building we own. A building that should be empty. Someone gave them access, told them exactly where to look and when. He pulled the phone back, his hand trembling with barely contained fury. So no, Maya. I'm not overreacting. If anything, I haven't reacted enough. Maya clutched Lyra closer, the baby making small sounds of protest at the tension radiating from the adults. Do you know who it is? Not yet. But I will. The promise in those words was terrifying. Victor is interrogating the security team now. The housekeeping staff. Everyone who had access to your floor. When I find them, He stopped, jaw working. When I find them, they'll wish they'd never been born. The casual brutality should have horrified her. Instead, Maya felt a treacherous sense of safety. This monster was her monster. His violence in this moment stood between her and people who wanted to hurt Lyra. How long until you find them? She asked. Could be hours. Could be days. Silas reached out, ran a finger along Lyra's small hand. His daughter gripped his finger instinctively, and some of the rage leaked from his expression. Until then, you don't leave my sight. You don't trust anyone except Victor and me. You assume every smile hides a knife. That's a terrible way to live. It's the only way to survive. He looked at her, then really looked at her, and Maya saw something that made her breath catch. Possession. Raw, unapologetic possession. They want to take you from me. Use you against me. Hurt what Lyra needs. I won't allow it. The slip was deliberate, Maya realized. He'd almost said something else. Something that would have changed everything between them. I'll pack Lyra's things, she said quietly, needing to break the moment before it consumed them both. I'll help you. Silas moved toward the dresser, and Maya watched as the most feared crime lord on the East Coast carefully folded baby clothes with surprising competence. And Maya? From now on, when we're in public areas of the house, you stay within arm's reach. No exceptions. That's excessive. That's survival. He glanced at her over his shoulder. You're mine to protect now. I take that responsibility seriously. The word hung in the air between them, weighted with meanings Maya didn't want to examine. The move to the East Wing happened within the hour. Maya found herself in a suite that was somehow both Spartan and luxurious. All clean lines and expensive materials, but nothing unnecessary. Silas's bedroom was through one door, hers through another, with a shared sitting room between them. Lyra's temporary nursery occupied the largest space, already equipped with everything the baby needed. The windows are reinforced, Silas explained, showing her the various security features. Bulletproof, explosion-resistant. The walls are steel core. This entire wing could withstand a siege. Comforting, Maya said dryly. He caught her arm as she moved past him, his grip gentle but unyielding. I know you think I'm paranoid. That I'm using this as an excuse to keep you closer. Maybe I am. But I'm also right. His thumb brushed across her wrist, whether conscious or not she couldn't tell. You're too important to lose, Maya. To wire. He stopped again, released her. Just stay close. Let me keep you safe. That night, Maya lay in her new room and listened to Silas moving around on the other side of the wall. She heard him check on Lyra 3 times, heard the quiet sounds of him preparing for bed, heard the moment his movements finally stopped. Somewhere in the house, a traitor was hiding. Somewhere beyond these walls, enemies were planning. And here, in the eye of the storm, Maya was beginning to understand that the most dangerous threat wasn't the external enemies. It was the way her heart beat faster when Silas looked at her like she belonged to him. It was the way she was starting to believe she did. The package arrived during breakfast. Maya was feeding Lyra in the East Wing's sitting room while Silas reviewed security reports, both of them settling into a domestic rhythm that felt dangerously normal. Victor brought the box himself, his face grim. It was left at the front gate. Addressed to Miss Vance. Maya's stomach dropped. No one should know she was here. No one should know she existed. Silas was on his feet instantly, moving between Maya and the package. Don't touch it. Get the bomb unit. Already scanned, sir. No explosives. No biological threats. But you need to see what's inside. The box contained a single item, a child's silver rattle, delicate and antique with an engraving on the handle. Maya couldn't read the Cyrillic script, but she didn't need to. The message was in what else came with it. A photograph of Lyra sleeping in her crib, taken from an angle that could only mean one thing. Someone had been inside the nursery. Inside their supposedly impenetrable fortress. When? Silas's voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded executions. We're checking the footage now, but based on the photo timestamp. Victor hesitated. Last night. Between 2 and 4 a.m. The same hours Maya had been awake had heard Silas checking on Lyra. The same hour she'd thought they were safe behind steel walls and biometric locks. Maya stood still holding Lyra, her entire body vibrating with a fury she'd never felt before. How did they get in? That's what we're... How did they get in? Each word came out like a bullet. Maya turned to Silas, and whatever he saw in her face made him go still. You told me this wing was secure. You told me no one could access it. And someone walked into her nursery and stood over her while she slept. Maya. No. She cut him off, adjusting Lyra against her shoulder with the fierce protectiveness of a mother bear. You don't get to manage me right now. You don't get to tell me it's handled or that you're working on it. Someone threatened She stopped, the word catching in her throat. Someone threatened her. And I want to know how, I want to know who, and I want to know what you're going to do about it. The room went silent. Victor looked between them like he was watching something unprecedented unfold. Silas stared at Maya with an expression she couldn't name. Your daughter, he said softly. You were going to say your daughter. Maya's jaw tightened. Don't deflect. Answer the question. Something shifted in Silas's eyes. Respect, maybe, or recognition. He pulled out his phone, pulled up security footage. This is the East Wing hallway at 2:47 a.m. Watch the third camera. Maya watched as a figure in maintenance coveralls moved through the frame, carrying a toolbox ID badge visible. They looked like they belonged. They moved like they had every right to be there. Jenna Kolsky, Silas said. Housekeeping supervisor. Been with us for 3 years. Cleared through 5 levels of background checks. And apparently for the last 6 months on the Ironwork cartel's payroll. Where is she now? Dead. Victor's voice was flat. Tried to run when we confronted her an hour ago. Didn't make it past the south gate. Maya should have felt something, shock, horror, guilt. Instead she felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Good. Now tell me what other vulnerabilities exist in your security protocols. Silas's eyebrow raised. Maya. I'm serious. Show me the blind spots. Show me every access point, every rotation schedule, every single place where someone could get through to hurt her. Maya moved closer to him, Lyra nestled against her chest. You keep telling me I'm bloodbound to your daughter. That I'm under Vain protection. Fine. Then I need to know how that protection works. Because clearly it's not working well enough. For a long moment Silas just looked at her. Then he turned to Victor. Get the security schematics. All of them. And pull the rotation schedules for the next month. Sir. You heard me. Miss Vance wants to review our protocols. His eyes never left Maya's face. And she's right. If someone got through once, they'll try again. We need fresh eyes. Someone who thinks like a protector, not a soldier. Maya followed Silas to his office, a room she'd never been allowed to enter before. The walls were covered with monitors, maps, operational boards that looked like something from a military command center. He spread the security schematics across his desk, detailed blueprints of the entire estate. These are the access points, he began, pointing to marked locations. Primary gates here and here, service entrance, emergency exits. This window. Maya interrupted, pointing to the nursery. It faces the east garden. What's the sight line from the perimeter wall? Silas pulled up a different map. Obstructed by trees, but technically visible from the northeast corner. Cut them down. Those trees have been there for 40 years. And they're a vulnerability now. Maya traced the garden path with her finger. What about the service entrance? How many people have access codes? 17. All vetted staff. Too many. Cut it to 5. Change the codes weekly, not monthly. And I want biometric scans added, Not just cards that can be stolen. She turned to face him. The nursery needs a panic room. If someone breaches the suite, I need somewhere I can take her that they can't get through. Not in minutes. Not in hours. Silas stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. You're serious? I've spent 8 years protecting children from danger. The only difference now is the type of threat. Maya looked down at Lyra, who had fallen asleep against her shoulder, completely trusting, completely vulnerable. She's not going through life wondering if she's safe. She's not going to grow up looking over her shoulder because the people protecting her were too proud or too traditional to adapt. This isn't pride. This is insufficient. Maya met his eyes. Your system failed, Silas. Someone you trusted got through. So either you adapt or I find another way to keep her safe. The implied threat hung in the air. They both knew she had nowhere to go, no leverage to use. But the fierce determination in her voice made it real anyway. Silas moved around the desk, close enough that Maya could feel the heat radiating from him. You're not just playing mother anymore, are you? I'm not playing anything. Maya's voice was steel. That baby in my arms is everything. And I will burn this entire estate down before I let someone hurt her. Something blazed in Silas's eyes. Triumph, possession, and something darker that made Maya's breath catch. Then we understand each other. He reached out, his hand covering both Maya's where she held Lyra. You're not a captive anymore, Maya. You're family. And we protect family with everything we have. Family. The word settled over Maya like a vow and a chain simultaneously. She looked down at Lyra, then back at Silas, and realized she'd stopped fighting the inevitable somewhere between the rattle and the schematics. Then let's make sure they never get close again, she said. And somewhere in the back of her mind, the last piece of her old life finally, irrevocably let go. They came at 3 a.m. when the world was darkest and defenses were weakest. Maya woke to the sound of gunfire, not the distant pops from movies, but the deafening crack of high-caliber weapons that made her teeth rattle and her heart stop. She was moving before conscious thought kicked in, muscle memory from countless emergency drills taking over. Lyra's nursery. Get to Lyra. But Silas was already there, scooping his screaming daughter from the crib with one hand while the other held a gun that looked military-grade. His eyes found Maya's in the darkness and something passed between them. No words needed, just absolute understanding. The panic room. Now. He thrust Lyra into Maya's arms, then positioned himself between them and the door. Go. I'm right behind you. Maya ran. The panic room was hidden behind what looked like a bookshelf in Silas's office. The modification she'd insisted on just 3 days ago. Her hands shook as she pressed the biometric scanner, as the heavy door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. The room beyond was small but equipped for siege. Reinforced walls, independent air supply, monitors showing every camera feed on the estate, and enough supplies to last a week. Maya stepped inside, turning back for Silas just as an explosion rocked the east wing. The blast threw him forward. He stumbled into the panic room, blood streaming from a cut above his eye, and slammed his hand on the internal lock. The door sealed with a sound like a vault closing. Are you hit? Maya was already checking him over, Lyra screaming against her chest. Superficial. Silas moved to the monitors, his face hardening as the screens showed the carnage outside. They breached the south gate. 20, maybe 30 hostiles. Professional team. The Ironwork cartel? Has to be. He pulled up the communication system, started barking orders to Victor and the other security teams scattered throughout the estate. East Wing is compromised. Fall back to secondary positions. Do not let them reach the office level. Maya watched the monitors over his shoulder, her heart in her throat. Figures in tactical gear moved through the house like shadows, exchanging fire with Silas's men. She saw Victor take down 3 attackers before disappearing into a stairwell. Saw another guard fall, blood blooming across his chest. They're heading for the East Wing, she said, pointing to one screen. They know we're here. Silas's jaw tightened. The spy must have transmitted the panic room location before we found her. He pulled out a second weapon from a hidden compartment, checked the magazine. They're going to try to breach. Can they? The door will hold for hours. Maybe days. His eyes met hers. But my men can't. They're outnumbered and outgunned. If I don't get out there. You can't leave us. Maya's voice cracked and she hated the fear in it. Silas, if you go out there. Victor has the tactical advantage, but he needs command coordination. He moved to the door controls, hesitated. Maya, I need you to listen very carefully. If they breach this room, there's an emergency exit behind that panel. He pointed to the far wall. It leads to the underground garage. Keys are in the drawer. Take Lyra and run. Don't look back. I'm not leaving you. You're not leaving her unprotected. He turned to face her fully, and Maya saw something that terrified her more than the gunfire outside. Goodbye in his eyes. Promise me, Maya. Whatever happens, you get her out. You keep her safe. Silas. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, one hand cupping her face while the other rested over Lyra's small back. You're the best thing that ever happened to her. To us. His thumb brushed Maya's cheek and she realized she was crying. Promise me. I promise. The words tasted like ash. But you're coming back. You hear me? You don't get to do the noble sacrifice thing. We need you. Something blazed in his expression. Hope, maybe, or longing. We. She needs her father. And I. Maya stopped, the words catching in her throat. Don't make me say it. Not like this. Silas leaned in, pressed his forehead to hers for one heartbeat, too. His hand tightened on her face like he was memorizing the feel of her. When this is over, he said quietly, we're going to finish that sentence. Then he was moving, unlocking the door with the override code. Lock it behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Victor. Code phrase is sanctuary. Anything else you run. Silas. He looked back one last time and Maya saw the monster everyone feared. They came into my home. Threatened my daughter. Threatened you. His voice dropped to something lethal. I'm going to teach them what happens when you touch what's mine. Then he was gone and the door sealed behind him, and Maya was alone with a screaming baby and monitors showing a war being fought in the halls she'd walked through just hours ago. She sank to the floor, holding Lyra against her chest and forced herself to breathe. To watch the screens and track Silas's movement through the estate as he became something other than human. A force of nature cutting through the attackers with brutal efficiency. She watched him fight for them. Watched him kill for them. Watched the man she'd called a monster prove exactly why people feared the name Vain. And somewhere between the gunfire and the blood, between the terror and the trust, Maya realized she'd stopped lying to herself about what he meant to her. The monitors showed Silas taking down the last attacker in the main hall, Victor securing the perimeter, the assault finally ending as dawn broke over the ravaged estate. Maya counted the seconds until the knock came at the door. Until she heard his voice, rough and exhausted, "Sanctuary." She opened the door to find him standing there, covered in blood and smoke and violence, looking at her like she was the only clean thing left in his dark world. "We survived," he said. Maya stepped forward, Lyra between them, and let her forehead rest against his chest. "We survived." And in that moment, surrounded by the wreckage of the siege, they both knew everything had changed. The estate took 3 weeks to repair. Bullet holes patched, blood cleaned, broken windows replaced with even stronger glass. The ironwork cartel had been decimated. Those who survived the siege were either dead or had disappeared into whatever holes criminals crawled into when they'd lost a war they started. The message had been sent, received, and understood. The Vain syndicate was untouchable. Maya stood in the rebuilt nursery, watching early morning light stream through the new reinforced windows. Lyra was in her arms, babbling happily and reaching for dust motes dancing in the sun. 4 months old now, thriving in ways that seemed impossible for a baby who'd spent her first months screaming. She looks like you when she smiles like that. Maya turned to find Silas in the doorway, dressed in one of his immaculate suits, looking every inch the crime lord who'd just consolidated power across 3 states. But his eyes were soft as he watched his daughter, and softer still when they moved to Maya. She looks like her mother, Maya corrected gently. I've seen the photos. Isabella gave her life. You gave her peace. Silas moved into the room, his presence filling the space as always. There's a difference. They'd fallen into something over the past 3 weeks. Not quite romance, not quite partnership, but something that felt inevitable. Shared midnight feedings and security briefings. His hand on her back as they walked through the repaired halls. The way Lyra reached for both of them now, recognizing them equally as safety and home. I need to talk to you, Silas said, and something in his tone made Maya's stomach tighten. In my office. The walk down the hallway felt like marching toward a verdict. Maya settled Lyra in the portable bassinet Silas kept in his office now. Another sign of how their lives had intertwined, and turned to face him. He stood behind his desk, a folder in his hands, his expression unreadable. What is this? Maya asked. Your freedom. He slid the folder across the desk to her. New identity, completely clean. Bank account with enough money to disappear anywhere in the world. Passport, documentation, everything you need to start over. As of this morning, Maya Vance is legally alive again. Not the same woman who died in that fire, but close enough that you could rebuild your life if you wanted. Maya stared at the folder like it might bite her. I don't understand. The threat is eliminated. The ironwork cartel is finished. The other families have accepted Lyra as the legitimate heir and you as her. He paused, seemed to struggle with the word. Her guardian. Blood-bound and sanctioned. No one will touch you now. Which means you don't need my protection anymore. So you're kicking me out? The words came out sharper than Maya intended. I'm giving you a choice. Silas moved around the desk, but kept his distance, like he was afraid getting too close would influence her decision. You never asked for this life. I forced it on you, justified it as protection, kept you here when you wanted to leave. I told myself it was for Lyra, for your safety, but the truth is... He stopped, jaw working. The truth is I'm a selfish bastard who couldn't stand the thought of you walking away. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. Silas. Let me finish. His voice roughened. You deserve better than this. Better than a fortress and bodyguards and a life where you have to watch your daughter grow up surrounded by violence. Better than me. So I'm offering you out. Real freedom. No strings, no blood debts, no obligations. His eyes met hers, and Maya saw everything he wasn't saying written in that pale gray gaze. But if you stay knowing exactly what this life means. What I am. What Lyra will become. The folder sat between them, full of possibility and escape. Everything Maya had wanted a month ago. 2 weeks ago. Maybe even yesterday. She looked at Lyra, sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, one tiny hand curled against her cheek. Looked at the office where she'd spent countless hours redesigning security protocols. Looked at the man who'd kidnapped her, erased her, protected her, and somehow become the person she trusted most in the world. You're right, Maya said quietly. I never asked for this life. Something cracked in Silas's expression. Pain, acceptance, resignation. But I'm choosing it now. Maya picked up the folder, walked to the shredder beside his desk and fed the papers through one by one. Not because of some blood debt or tradition. Not because I'm afraid of what's out there. But because this. She gestured between them toward Lyra, toward the life they'd built in the wreckage of chaos. This is my family. Silas went absolutely still. Maya. You asked me to finish that sentence. She moved closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from him. In the panic room before you left. You asked what I needed to say. You don't have to. I need you. The words came out fierce, certain. Both of you. Lyra needs her father and I need. She stopped, reached up to touch his face, feeling the scratch of stubble against her palm. I need the man who learned to change diapers at 3 a.m. Who trusts me to redesign his security. Who looked at me covered in baby spit up and exhaustion and saw someone worth protecting. Not the monster everyone fears. The man who holds his daughter like she's made of light. Silas's hand came up to cover hers, his fingers trembling slightly. I'm still a monster, Maya. That doesn't change. No. But you're my monster. And that makes all the difference. He kissed her then, one hand cupping her face, the other pulling her close with a desperation that spoke of weeks of restraint finally breaking. Maya melted into him, into the certainty that this was right, that she was exactly where she was meant to be. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Silas rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said roughly. Probably have since you stole my daughter from my arms on that plane and looked at me like I was just another scared father. I love you too. Maya smiled against his mouth. Even though you're a criminal and a kidnapper and the most infuriating man I've ever met. Those are my best qualities. They stood there wrapped in each other while Lyra slept peacefully in her bassinet. Outside, guards patrolled the rebuilt grounds. Inside, a family had formed from impossible circumstances, forged in terror, tempered in trust and sealed in choice. That evening, Maya stood on the balcony of the east wing with Lyra in her arms while Silas's hand rested on her lower back. The estate stretched before them, a fortress and a home, a prison that had become a sanctuary. What do we tell her? Maya asked quietly, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and gold. When she's old enough to understand what her father does. What this life means. We tell her the truth. Silas's arm tightened around Maya's waist. That she was born into a world of darkness, but she brought light into it. That her mother gave her life and you gave her love. That family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the people who fight for you when the world wants to tear you apart. Maya leaned into him, feeling the solid strength of his body against hers. And that her father would burn the world down to keep her safe. That her parents would burn the world down, Silas corrected, pressing a kiss to her temple. We're a united front now. The new Vain dynasty. Lyra chose that moment to laugh, a bright sound that cut through the gathering darkness. She reached for her father, then her mother, tiny hands bridging the space between them as if she understood perfectly that they were all connected now. Inseparable. Maya looked at Silas, at this man who'd kidnapped her and saved her and loved her with a ferocity that should have terrified her but instead made her feel invincible. So what happens now? His smile was sharp and dangerous and completely hers. Now we live. We protect what's ours. We build something that even my enemies can't destroy. He looked down at his daughter, then back at Maya. We become the family that refuses to break. And there, in the fading light, with a baby between them and an empire at their feet, Maya finally understood what it meant to be bloodbound to the Vain Syndicate. It meant choosing to stay when freedom was offered. It meant loving a monster and becoming something fierce yourself. It meant protecting a child who would grow up knowing both violence and devotion in equal measure. It meant being home. If you enjoyed Maya and Silas's story, don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling romance tales where love is forged in the most dangerous circumstances. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss when ordinary people collide with extraordinary danger and find themselves transformed by love, loyalty, and the fierce bonds of chosen family. What did you think of Maya's journey from captive to queen of the Vain dynasty? Drop a comment below and let me know your favorite moment. Was it the airplane confrontation, the panic room siege, or that final choice when she shredded her freedom for love? Subscribe now, and I'll see you in the next story where passion meets peril and hearts are one in the shadows.